Hello everyone, welcome back. Am I the jerk for not letting my brother's wife take my wedding dress? Okay, so this might be a little messy, but bear with me. I am really upset and do not know what to do. I, 29F, got married 3 years ago to my husband, 30M. It was the happiest day of my life, and I had this beautiful dress that my mom worked extra hours to help me afford. It is not a designer piece or anything ridiculously expensive, but it is special to me because my mom passed away last year, and now it is one of the few things I have left of her. My brother Ryan, 27M, is getting married next month to his fiancée Amber, 26F. I have never been close with Amber, not because I dislike her, but because she is very bold. She says what she wants, takes what she wants, and does not seem to think much about how it affects other people. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, she called me and said she wanted to borrow my wedding dress for her wedding. I was shocked. First of all, we do not even have the same body type. The dress would not fit her, and even if it did, I feel like a wedding dress is a deeply personal thing, you know? I told her no and explained why the dress was so important to me. I even offered to help her shop for her own dress or lend her some money if she needed it. She just said, "I can't believe how selfish you are," and hung up on me. Now here is where it gets crazy. Ryan called me the next day, accusing me of ruining Amber's wedding. Apparently, she had already told people she was wearing my dress and even posted pictures of it on Facebook without my permission. I do not even know how she got the photos. When I said no again, Ryan called me petty and said that family should help each other out. Then Amber showed up at my house while I was at work. My husband was home, and she tried to convince him to let her just try it on. Luckily, he knew the whole story and told her to leave. Now Ryan is mad at him too, saying we ganged up on Amber. I am so tired of this drama. I feel bad because I know weddings can be stressful, but I also feel like they are being completely unreasonable. Amber's mom even called me, saying I should do the right thing and give Amber the dress. Am I wrong for standing my ground? Hi everyone, our next story. Am I the jerk for canceling our wedding after my fiancé said something disgusting about my little brother? Hi Reddit, I'm in a tough spot at the moment. My fiancé, let's call her Karen, 32F, and I, 31M, were supposed to get married in just over 6 months. Things started to go wrong when we began discussing the guest list. Karen had been saying for a while that she did not want my little brother, Chad, 26M, at the wedding, but she would not give me a real explanation. I told her many times that my brother's presence was absolutely non-negotiable. For context, Chad and I have always been incredibly close. Our parents were not abusive or anything, but they were not the most responsible. They often dropped us off at our grandma's to go party, and as soon as I was old enough to take care of us both, they pretty much left the house and my brother for me to handle. It was a trashy way to treat your kids, sure, but it allowed Chad and me to bond extremely closely. I am not exaggerating when I say he is my favorite person in the entire world. I would take a bullet for him. The only people who might ever rival my love for him are my future kids. So yeah, my baby brother's presence at my wedding was not something I was willing to sacrifice, at all. A few days ago, the topic of the guest list came up again, and Karen repeated that she did not want Chad there. At that point, I was getting really frustrated. I told her there would be no wedding at all if he was not invited, and she needed to either drop it or leave. Then I demanded she tell me why she did not want him there in the first place. That is when she told me something that completely floored me. She said she did not want a faggot at her wedding and that her family did not approve of his lifestyle. I could not believe what I was hearing. I knew she was not exactly the most progressive person, but I had no idea it was this bad. My brother is the sweetest, kindest, and purest soul on earth. To think that she could hate him over something so trivial was beyond disgusting. For context, Chad is bisexual. He came out to me when he was 20. And he looked absolutely terrified when he did. I reassured him that I loved him no matter what, and I promised myself I would never let anyone else make him feel scared or hurt again. After hearing Karen's words, I could not even imagine her being in the same room as Chad. My protective big brother instincts kicked in, and I told her we were done. I asked for the ring back, which she reluctantly gave me, and told her she had 10 minutes to pack her things and get out of my house before I called the cops. I canceled everything and told anyone who asked exactly why Karen and I were no longer together. Chad, being the sweet person he is, heard about the situation and all the drama it caused. He even told me it was not a big deal if he was not at the wedding, as long as I was happy. I told him that my big day was meant to be the happiest day of my life, and it would not be without him. More importantly, I could not be happy with someone like Karen after seeing who she really was. Now Karen is back at her parents' house. Some of our mutual friends have distanced themselves from her. Her family has sent me countless hateful messages, which I ended up blocking. Karen herself has not been aggressive but keeps alternating between guilt-tripping me and crying, saying I ruined her life, Apparently the news spread quickly. She also said she cannot believe I ended our 4-year relationship over a word, but not once has she apologized for what she said about Chad. That only solidified my decision to never have anything to do with her again. So yeah, maybe I am the jerk, but I do not think so. Honestly, I believe Karen deserves every bit of backlash she is getting. People need to face the consequences of their hatred, and I am glad her true self has been revealed to the world. Who even says something like that in Seattle, of all places? Our next story. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my sister after what she did to me? This is kind of long, but I need some outside opinions because my family is literally losing their minds at me right now. So, I, 28M, have a younger sister, Kelly, 26F. We used to be close as kids, but things started going downhill when I got into college. Kelly has always been, well, spoiled. My parents always favored her because she was the baby of the family and struggled in school. She was the golden child, while I was expected to be independent and take care of myself. When I got into college, I worked part-time jobs to cover my expenses while juggling a full-time course load. Meanwhile, Kelly was handed new iPhones and vacations paid for by my parents every year. I didn't complain because, hey, that's just how it was. Fast forward a few years, I graduated, got a decent job in IT, and started saving up to buy my first home. I was proud of myself. Then the bombshell hit. Kelly got pregnant with her then boyfriend, now ex, because of course he bailed. My parents panicked because they didn't want her to ruin our future. And guess who they turned to for help? Me. They essentially told me I needed to give Kelly the money I'd saved for my house so she could get back on her feet. Mind you, Kelly and I weren't even on good terms because she thought I was boring and judgy for not partying like she did. I refused. Why should I give up my hard-earned savings because she made poor choices? My parents called me selfish and heartless, but I stood my ground. Eventually, they mortgaged their house to help her, and I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward to last month. I finally bought my dream house, a cozy place with a yard. I invited my family over for a small housewarming barbecue. Kelly showed up late, barely said 2 words to me, and then started complaining about how unfair it was that I had a house while she was stuck in a crappy apartment. Here's the kicker. 2 days later, I found out from a mutual friend that Kelly told everyone at the barbecue that I only have the house because I stole inheritance money from her. What? There is no inheritance. Our parents are still alive. I confronted her, and she just smirked and said, well, maybe you should have helped me when I needed it. I lost it. I told her she was toxic, selfish, and that I was done with her. Now, here's where the current drama begins. Kelly's babysitter recently quit, and my parents are begging me to help out by watching her kid. They keep saying, family sticks together, and that I need to be the bigger person. I told them no. Now, my entire family is blowing up my phone, calling me a jerk and saying I'm punishing an innocent child because of my issues with Kelly. But this isn't my responsibility, right? I work full-time and have my own life. So, am I the jerk for refusing to help after everything she did to me? Our next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to change my will after my brother asked for fairness for his kids? I, 36M, am unmarried with no kids, but I'm very close to my niece, 10F, and nephew, 8M, from my younger sister Emma, 34F. I've been in their lives since they were born, and I love them like they're my own. Over the years, I've set aside a significant portion of my savings for them in my will, including some property I own, as I want them to have a good start in life. My older brother Dave, 38M, recently found out about my will. He has 3 kids, 12M, 9F, and 7M, but to be honest, we're not close. He moved to another state years ago, and I only see his family once or twice a year. His kids are fine, but we don't have the same bond. When Dave learned I left most of my assets to Emma's kids, he got upset and accused me of favoring them unfairly. He argued that since he has more kids, they need the money more and that splitting my estate equally among all 5 kids would be the right thing to do. I told him no. I explained that my money is mine to allocate, and it's going to the kids I have an actual relationship with. He called me selfish and said I was punishing his kids for circumstances beyond their control. My parents are now involved and think I should keep the peace by leaving something for Dave's kids, but Emma has my back and says I'm doing nothing wrong. Am I the a-hole for sticking to my decision? Our next story. Ida for refusing to let my roommate's boyfriend live with us after he tested me. I, 19F, live with my roommate, Ashley, 20F, in a small 2-bedroom apartment. We've been friends since high school and decided to split rent when we both started college. Things were fine at first, but then she started dating Jake, 22M. At first, he was over just a couple of nights a week, which I didn't mind. But over the past few months, he has basically moved in, eating our food, using our stuff, and not contributing a single dime to rent or bills. I finally had enough and told Ashley that Jake either needed to start paying his share or stop practically living here. She apologized and said she'd talk to him. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward to last week. I was getting ready to head out to a late-night study group when Jake cornered me in the kitchen. He told me he wanted to test me to see if I would be a good person to live with full-time. I was confused and asked what he meant. He said that if I wanted him to pay rent, I had to prove I was roommate material by following his list of rules. These included doing my share of the cooking, even though I already make my own meals, not bringing any guys over. I am single, but why is that even relevant? And being respectful of his gaming time by keeping the Wi-Fi free during his streams. I laughed in his face and told him there was no way he was moving in. He got upset and told Ashley I was being unreasonable. She confronted me and said Jake was just testing the waters and that I should have been more open to the idea. She accused me of being jealous because I am single and suggested I was trying to sabotage their relationship. Now she says if I cannot be supportive, then maybe she should get a new roommate, one who respects her relationship. I think this is completely insane, but Ashley and a couple of her friends are siding with Jake. They are calling me selfish and controlling. Update after 2 days. Hi everyone. It has been a wild ride since my original post, and I wanted to give an update because a lot has happened. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented. It helped me see things in a completely new light. Honestly, I did not even realize how much I was being manipulated by Jake and Ashley until I read some of your insights. I thought they were my friends, but now I see how toxic their behavior really is. Maybe I just hated the thought of not having any friends, but who needs enemies with friends like these? It still breaks my heart to realize this, and I cried a lot. That does not change anything. I do not know why I'm saying this. It has just been a really emotional few days. Please forgive my rant. Since our confrontation, Jake has gone full victim mode. He has been telling mutual friends that I am trying to ruin his life and kick him out of his girlfriend's apartment. Let me remind you, this man does not pay rent or contribute to any bills, so calling it his girlfriend's apartment is already laughable. He has been painting me as some controlling, jealous monster who cannot handle his straightforward personality. Meanwhile, Ashley is eating it up and defending him, saying I am overreacting and causing unnecessary drama. What is worse is that I have started noticing how much control Jake has over Ashley. She is completely bought into his narrative and is now acting like I am the enemy. For example, she told me last night that my attitude is making it hard for them to feel comfortable in their own home. Their home. This apartment is 50% mine, but suddenly I am being treated like an unwelcome guest. I have decided I have had enough. I have already documented everything. His constant presence, his freeloading, and now his smear campaign. I am reaching out to my landlord this week. Most leases have clauses about long-term guests, and Jake has definitely overstayed his. As for Ashley, I do not know if there is any saving our friendship. I am heartbroken because I thought she cared about me, but now I realize she is supporting Jake's manipulative behavior. Thank you to everyone who opened my eyes to what was really happening. I will post another update once I have spoken to my landlord and taken further action. For now, I am just trying to reclaim my space and my peace of mind. Also, I really want to thank you for just caring and being there. This is what I needed to hear, and you were honest and fair with me. I am very grateful for the support I got that I could not get anywhere else. Thank you. Am I the a-hole for not splitting the surprise Thanksgiving bill? This year my father-in-law suggested we host Thanksgiving. We live in a different state and never spend Thanksgiving with them. But since we now live between him and my brother-in-law's family, it made sense. Plus, we have a little more space, so we agreed. There were 12 people in total, including my other adult brother-in-law and sister. For the Thanksgiving menu, my in-laws wanted to make 8 casseroles. We planned to make green beans, mashed potatoes, and, of course, a turkey. We gently suggested that might be too much for our kitchen, but they were adamant, saying everyone would be disappointed since these casseroles were part of their family traditions. We bought the turkey, lots of drinks, ingredients for green beans and mashed potatoes, pies, and various odds and ends. They bought a lot of casserole ingredients but kept complaining some might go bad, which was unfortunate. We used some of their butter, but they used plenty of our seasonings and other items. I didn't pay much attention to what they used because, honestly, why would I? Father-in-law kept running to the store for random items, many of which were never used or needed. He even bought a pineapple peeler and ingredients for caramel apples. It was strange, but not really my concern, until later. As one of my brothers-in-law was getting ready to leave, father-in-law pulled him and my husband aside, saying that due to the high costs of hosting, the 3 of them could split the bill. He said he'd send out receipts for reimbursement on Venmo. My husband was stunned. My brother-in-law awkwardly agreed, assuming it was to help us out since we hosted. He didn't realize it was to cover his father's expenses, not ours. After my brother-in-law left, I was cleaning in the kitchen, I usually let my husband handle his family dynamics, when father-in-law started packing up ingredients and told my husband he'd exclude a drink from the bill. At this point, I broke my usual rule and said, "This is very different from how my family does things. In my family, contributions are the dishes you bring, and everything is agreed upon ahead of time." Father-in-law replied, "We just thought everyone could contribute." I pointed out that everyone would include all attendees, not just my husband, father-in-law, and one brother-in-law, all the married men. It got awkward fast. Father-in-law kept going on about how expensive groceries are. Am I the a-hole for refusing to split this surprise Thanksgiving bill? Our next story, r/MaliciousCompliance. Describe the food. You got it, boss. Many years ago, I worked at a restaurant that's part of a national chain named after a fruit and an insect. I had just put in my 2 weeks' notice after landing a better job, and the restaurant was gearing up to tweak its menu. This meant mandatory staff meetings to familiarize everyone with the new dishes. These meetings were scheduled in the mornings before the restaurant opened, ensuring all staff could attend. As the closing bartender, I often worked until 2 or 3 a.m. cleaning up. Turning around to attend an early, hour-long, untipped meeting, earning just minimum wage, on barely 6 hours of sleep was not my idea of fun. Since I was leaving soon and wouldn't even be working when the new menu launched, I asked my boss if I could skip these meetings. He replied, "If you want to work your remaining scheduled shifts, you do." Being a college student living paycheck to paycheck, I couldn't afford to lose a week and a half of wages, so I reluctantly complied. Part of the training involved filling out a booklet about the menu items, which included the prompt, "How would you describe this dish?" The idea was to write enticing descriptions like, "A quarter pound of Angus beef smothered in melted cheese and tender onions." However, there were no guidelines about what not to write. Cue malicious compliance. I sat slightly out of my manager's sight and used my phone to look up the nutritional values of the menu items from the corporate website. I filled out my booklet like this. The classic bacon cheeseburger has 1,320 calories, 140% of your daily saturated fat, 28 grams, and 124% of your daily sodium, 2,860 milligrams. The mushroom Swiss burger has 1,580 calories, 155% of your daily saturated fat, 31 grams, and 126% of your recommended sodium, 3,100 milligrams. The quesadilla burger has 1,580 calories, 190% of your daily saturated fat, 38 grams, and 191% of your recommended sodium intake, 3,470 milligrams. The next day, my boss called me into his office to discuss my booklet. He asked, "Are these the real nutritional numbers?" I replied, "You're the manager. You should know." "But yes, I pulled them straight from the company website." He shook his head and said, "God, that's disgusting. I should be looking for a new job too. We shouldn't be selling this stuff." I worked my final shifts without incident and returned as a customer a couple of weeks later. I ordered a pitcher of the strongest beer we had on tap for myself and played trivia with some bar regulars who were my buddies. During the game, I loudly quizzed them on the nutritional facts of the food. The bartender, a former co-worker who was notoriously stuck up, kept glaring at me but couldn't say anything, as I wasn't the loudest in the group, and our conversation wasn't inappropriate. Moral of the story: the food at Apricot Beetles is incredibly unhealthy. Our next story, micromanaging principal. I am a science teacher, and one year, we got a new principal. He micromanaged everything and everyone. In the past, I conducted a few labs that involved food, but once he arrived, he sent out an email stating that if science teachers wanted to do labs with food, we had to submit a detailed lesson plan. Now, I understand if he wanted to know how the lab fit into the curriculum or the concepts being taught, but requiring a detailed lesson plan for every food-related lab felt excessive. He wasn't the kind of leader who welcomed dialogue either. It was always my way or the highway. Cue my passive-aggressive side. I started submitting 20-page lesson plans for these labs. I'm really good at filling pages with educational jargon, so I went all out. And guess what? That year, I did every single lab I could find that involved food, just because I could. Unfortunately, he made my solar cooker project nearly impossible to execute. That was especially disheartening since I had secured grant money from a major engineering organization the previous year for that exact project. Eventually, his micromanaging caught up with him. He faced so many grievances from staff members that it was a relief when he finally left. It was a great day for all of us when we could say goodbye to his reign of overcontrol. Our next story is about chips. A long time ago, I worked weekends in a warehouse that received chips in bulk. Imagine one truck arriving, all carrying a single flavor. Workers there loaded other trucks with mixed orders going to individual stores. Picture pallets of chips in boxes stacked 30 feet high, with trucks in docks being loaded with assorted flavors destined for convenience stores and grocery outlets. Our job as pickers was to push around large carts, gather boxes of chips of various flavors from different sections of the warehouse, load them onto our carts, and then pack them into the trucks. Once we finished one order, we'd move on to the next. If we accidentally dropped a box and a bag burst open, we'd eat it. There were always a few open bags in the warehouse, and snacking on them became part of the routine. I only worked weekends, so I often missed things that happened during the week. One weekend, I showed up to discover we were no longer allowed to eat chips. Apparently, a new manager had been hired, and he was on a power trip. He declared, "The next person I see eating our chips will be fired for theft of company property." This seemed absurd. They already had us compact and discard hundreds of cases of chips once they were too close to their expiration dates, less than 6 weeks. The sheer amount of waste made it infuriating to be scolded over eating a single bag of chips. As you might guess, morale took a nosedive that weekend. The following weekend, I returned to find the manager in an even worse mood. The workers had devised a clever plan for revenge. They began purchasing chips from our competitor and openly eating them while working. Since the chips were bought with their own money, management couldn't accuse anyone of theft. Management was horrified to see workers munching on the competition's products, but there was nothing they could do. It was a perfect act of protest, as it was entirely within the rules. Eventually, the situation was resolved. Management implemented a system where they placed stickers on certain bags of chips, approving them for consumption. Once labeled, the chips were no longer considered company property for sale but instead designated for employee use. In the end, we were allowed to snack on company products again, but only if management had given their blessing. Balance was restored, and we returned to enjoying the chips from our warehouse, albeit with some extra steps involved. That's it for now. See you in the next post.